北漂的尽头是什么？
What's the end of being a Beijing drifter? Does having a Beijing hukou and a house mean you've made it? Today, I received a WeChat message from a high school classmate. Because they don't have a Beijing hukou, they're taking their child back to their hometown for middle school in the second half of the year. This is the third Beijing drifter friend to leave Beijing this year. After more than 10 years of being a Beijing drifter, issues like hukou, housing, children, and elderly parents, issues that once seemed distant, now weigh heavily on the hearts of every Beijing drifter.
35岁，
I'm 35, a 10-year Beijing drifter, and I quit my job. Recently, my company restructured its departments and our entire team faced the prospect of reassigning positions. The company offered two options. 1. Accept a transfer to a new department. 2. Resign and receive N+1 compensation as per regulations. At 35, I've thought it through clearly. The uncertainty in the job market is increasing, and even if I stay this time, I might still face layoffs in the next few years. Seeing many of my friends who have worked in Beijing turn to their hometowns and live stable, fulfilling lives, I also want to go back and see if there's a suitable path for me. Once upon a time, Beijing was a mecca for countless passionate young people to realize their entrepreneurial dreams. Private companies, state-owned enterprises, and booming internet giants attracted wave after wave of young people to leave their hometowns, eager to strike it rich in this fertile ground. However, in recent years, amid the ongoing economic downturn, the once glorious Beijing dream has faded. People from other parts of China who come to Beijing are called Beijing drifters because of the CCP's strict household registration system. Only a very small number of migrant workers can obtain hukou, that is, household registration. After the Chinese New Year, the streets of the city seem somewhat deserted, and many people are struggling with the question, should they return to Beijing to continue their struggle? According to official data from the Beijing Municipal Bureau of Statistics and other sources, as of the end of 2024, Beijing's permanent resident population aged 20 to 34 was 4.54 million, a decrease of 345,000 from the previous year and a decrease of 1.22 million compared to 2020. Data for 2025 has not yet been released. Today, my husband and I decided on a date to go back to our hometown and bought the tickets. My heart is finally at ease. We've ultimately decided to leave Beijing together and return to our hometown to develop our lives. For those of us working away from home, leaving a city is perhaps an inevitable choice. No matter how hard we work or how hard we try to live in the city, it seems our monthly salary is only enough to cover rent. Housing prices in big cities are prohibitively high, and hukou is an insurmountable obstacle. Blogger Wendy said that in the end, they chose to compromise with life, saying goodbye to Beijing, say goodbye to the crowded subways and endless overtime, and return to the place where they grew up to live a stable life with her husband. Her husband resigned from his company as soon as he returned to Beijing. These past 2 days, he's been busy with the handover process. The moment he truly resigned, he suddenly felt a sense of relief. Wendy remarked that life isn't just about one way of living, but rather about having many choices, and often being comfortable is more important than anything else. After 5 years of living in Beijing, my salary dropped from $1,500 to $610, and rent was $290 a month. I decided to leave Beijing and go back to my hometown. But my mom and dad strongly objected. My mother cried again on the phone, saying how great Beijing was, with its extensive subway system and numerous hospitals and specialists. Why should I have to go back to the small place like Tailing? My father grabbed the phone from beside me, saying in a harsh tone, "If I come back from Beijing, just don't go back to live in the village. I've gone crazy." After hanging up, I looked out the window at the glittering office buildings and my eyes welled up with tears. The blogger said that her parents didn't know that she had been living in a cramped partition room of just over 10 square meters for years. To send more pocket money home, she even moved into an urban village with a monthly rent of only $70 one year. She understood that Beijing's abundant resources meant more opportunities if she stayed. But only she truly knew the hardships and pressures she had endured over the past 5 years. Perhaps her parents worried she would regret it, but life has no standard answers. She simply wanted to choose a path that would make her more comfortable, hoping to avoid such hardship in the future. China's household registration system is like an invisible net, determining whether a family can truly settle down in a city. For countless people working in Beijing, the hardest hurdle isn't housing prices, commuting, or work pressure, but whether their children can successfully attend school locally. Families working in Beijing often face complex point-based policies, strict document reviews, and long waits. Many work hard for years only to find their children can't even attend a nearby primary school. Therefore, it's common to see this scene in Beijing. Every school season, some people are anxious about buying school district housing, while others silently pack their bags and leave the city they've lived in for over a decade. This blogger is 30 years old and stayed in Beijing to work after graduating with a master's degree. She recently discovered that several of her classmates have left Beijing and returned to their hometowns. I graduated in 2019. Back then, quite a few of my classmates stayed in Beijing after graduation. 6 years have passed in the blink of an eye. I didn't expect to see everyone's Beijing drifter experience end so quickly. A classmate without a Beijing hukou bought a condo in Qingdao when they got married and never thought about staying in Beijing permanently. In Beijing, both of them encountered some unpleasant situations at their workplaces, so they both returned to Qingdao. Because they both majored in the same field, they now work at the same company. The husband focuses on working hard to earn money, while she focuses on health and preparing for pregnancy. Although there is still financial pressure, without the several thousand yuan per month in rent in Beijing, their happiness index has actually increased. The blogger commented, whether you're striving and struggling in a big city or choosing to relax in a second-tier city, the most crucial thing isn't the environment, but that two people can work side by side, accompany each other, and support each other. That's the best kind of life. Are brick-and-mortar restaurants really going to be eliminated? I used to be so busy that I couldn't eat lunch until 2 or 3 p.m., but now I have time to eat and chat. Our daily revenue hovers around $150, and it's hard to even reach $290. It's not just our restaurant that's empty. There aren't many people on the street either. Are they all ordering takeout? Some customers who live far away ask why we don't offer takeout. Their travel fee is enough for several bowls of noodles. Actually, we did offer takeout a few years ago. The delivery riders would keep urging us to hurry up after receiving orders because we were worried about bad reviews, so we started with takeout. But after a while, the customers in the restaurant started complaining. Everyone was waiting for something. The blogger said their restaurant is in the suburbs, quite far from their takeout customers, and that the noodles don't taste good if they're packed for too long. They even had 2 orders being cancelled, so they simply cancelled online delivery. A few months ago, after hearing from other shoppers that delivery revenue wasn't even as high as dine-in revenue, they decided to stop offering online services. She lamented that running a brick-and-mortar store is truly exhausting, not just physically but also mentally. But she believes that if she perseveres, perhaps a brighter future will eventually come. Today, I'm ending my 9 years of being a Beijing drifter. It's really time to say goodbye. Beijing is truly where many people's dreams begin, and also where they end. Although I've been planning to leave Beijing for some time, it was a well-considered decision. But as I set off, watching the movers carry away my luggage, my heart was filled with mixed emotions. The images of these 9 years, like a dream, kept flashing through my mind. Endless overtime, crammed subways, seeing the streets at 1 a.m., and witnessing the sunrise at 6 a.m. The blogger said that the pace of life and work here is very fast. As an ordinary person, she increasingly felt that she was just existing here, not living. Coincidentally, she recently lost her job and had no choice but to leave Beijing and return to her hometown, not wanting to bear such immense pressure anymore. This blogger, Adja, is an actor. He said he had been working in Beijing for 7 years, and although he had saved a 6-figure sum, almost none of it came from acting. How much money did a 90s-born Beijing drifter save in 7 years? 7 years ago, I came to Beijing with $580, rented a small flat for $130, and after paying rent, I had $440 left. At that time, I spent every day submitting resumes to various film crews. I went for 20 days submitting 50 resumes, but didn't get a single interview. I only had $54 left, and my rent was due soon. I hadn't earned a single penny. I was really desperate then. It wasn't at all like the life I had imagined in school. Just when I was at a loss, I got my first role in Beijing, playing a minor prince. Although the role wasn't big, it eased my immediate financial crisis. Adja said that since the start of the pandemic in 2019, he has had fewer and fewer acting opportunities, and his savings have almost run out. Later, his father passed away due to the pandemic, and he became the breadwinner of the family. He realized that instead of wasting his time in an industry with no future, it was better to switch tracks and start afresh. So he became a live streamer, working a regular job during the day, shooting short videos at night, and doing part-time work on weekends. He reflected that among those born in the 1990s, he wouldn't be considered successful, but he had earned his way up step by step through his own hard work. In his view, these experiences were more meaningful than any so-called success. Everyone says that brick-and-mortar clothing stores will be tough in 2025, and I still don't believe it. With only 4 days left until rent is due, it's so hard to make a decision. This year seems the hardest since my husband and I started running a clothing store. These past 2 days, the temperature in Beijing has been over 20 degrees Celsius, which is the peak season for clothing sales in March and April. Even during the peak season, we sometimes lose money. Our store's daily expenses are $150, which means we face $150 in expenses every day we wake up. There are plenty of customers in the mall, but now their purchasing desire is low. They think the expensive items are too expensive and they don't like the cheaper ones. Business is getting harder and harder. The blogger says that she and her husband have been running the store for 4.5 years. They haven't made a lot of money while they rely entirely on the store to support their family. That's why they were reluctant to give up the shop immediately. After all, both she and her husband only had junior high school educations, and in the big city like Beijing, it would be difficult to find suitable jobs. Although Beijing is the capital and very inclusive, even many college graduates have struggled to find suitable employment in recent years. If they really gave up the shop, they didn't know what else they could do, so they were very conflicted.
91年出生的我
Born in 1991, I made a major decision in 2026. Now, 35 years old, I'm leaving Beijing after more than 10 years of struggling in the city. In the summer of 2024, due to business downsizing, I was forced to leave the workforce, and I've been unemployed for almost 2 years now. During this period of unemployment in Beijing, I've consistently submitted resumes and attended interviews. As I get older, at 35, it's becoming increasingly difficult to find a job. Every time I say I'm 35 during an interview, that's almost always the end of the conversation. The blogger says that the exorbitant rents in Beijing are unbearable for him, so he's decided to move to Yangzhou, Hebei province, to alleviate the financial burden. When he went to see apartments with the real estate agent, he discovered a stark difference in rent between the two cities. In Beijing, even in remote areas, a one-bedroom apartment costs over $440, while in Yangzhou, a two-bedroom apartment costs less than $290. The surrounding amenities are also comprehensive, with supermarkets, a farmer's market, and bus stops, making life very convenient. Although there's no direct subway line between Beijing and Yangzhou, Hebei, surface transportation is relatively convenient. He lamented that after more than a decade of living in Beijing, he'd ended up with nothing. Now he could only temporarily stay in Yangzhou, and as for the future, he could only wait and see. Everyone says Beijing has over 20 million people, but why are the streets so empty? Before, the area under the Guomao Bridge was packed with people in the late afternoon, but now during rush hour, it feels like you could run there. There seems to be fewer elderly people strolling in the hutongs. Where have all the people gone? Have they been relocated to Tongzhou and Chang'an new area? Or are they all stuck inside Universal Studios and office buildings? The street crowds don't match the statistics.
90年的
I was born in 1990, worked as a programmer for 10 years, and ended my 10 years in Beijing before the new year. Now, I've returned to my rural hometown where I was born and raised. It snowed in my hometown today. The yard is covered with a thick layer of white snow, looking clean and beautiful. The path is difficult to walk on, so I picked up a broom and swept the snow. I cleared a path in the yard, making it easier to walk. I remember when I was a child, as soon as it snowed, a group of us kids would start building snowmen and having snowball fights. After shoveling the snow, I smelled a delicious aroma coming from the house. I went in to see what my mom was making. My mom was busy chopping the filling. The pork and scallion filling smelled amazing. She said she was going to steam big meat buns for me. The blogger said that freshly steamed meat buns have thin skins and generous fillings of meat. One bite and your mouth is filled with the taste of home. After 10 years of wandering, you've seen the hustle and bustle of big cities and endured the pressure of the workplace. Returning to the countryside now doesn't bring great wealth. It only brings the simple daily routine of shoveling snow, starting a fire, and cooking with your mother. He discovered that this is the life he truly wanted. Do you know what the real situation is like for those who lose their jobs and whose businesses go bankrupt in Beijing? Many of my friends have fallen into this trap. Let me tell you about someone I know. Take my cousin, for example. Born in 1993, he's 32 this year. He used to work in Beijing, earning $1,500 a month and saving some money. A few years ago, when the pandemic hit, his company's performance suffered, so he lost his job and returned to his hometown. After returning, he first bought a condo. Last year, he franchised an online store in the city, investing all of his savings. The first few months went well, but then he kept losing money and even incurred debt. This year, he had no choice but to go to Guangzhou to look for a job. Now he has to pay off debts and a mortgage. He also has 2 kids at home. Life is too hard. After 10 years of living in Beijing, I finally left. My husband and I were laid off. I gave up my $4,400 monthly salary and stock options and resigned voluntarily. You ask me why I left Beijing? Probably because I wanted to truly live. I had a moving service scheduled for noon today. I quickly packed my bedding this morning and ordered takeout for breakfast. I left the most valuable years of my youth here. I'm grateful to Beijing for giving us the opportunity to survive, and I have no regrets about choosing this path of living in Beijing. There was an initial lack of attachment and even a touch of anticipation when deciding to leave Beijing. However, there was a slight reluctance while packing, and finally the complex emotions swirling in the minds of the movers carried away loads of packages. The blogger recounted that after the moving company drove away, she and her husband returned to their room for a final cleanup. During this time, the landlord came to complete the handover, returning the remaining rent and deposit, a total of $1,200 in full, and promising to handle the cleaning. This thoughtfulness warmed the couple's hearts. She reflected that she didn't know if she would regret her decision in the future, but 10 years of living and working in Beijing had already etched itself deeply into her life. The sleepless nights, the tears shed, the moments of laughter, all remained in her memory. Goodbye, Beijing. Now she wouldn't have to renew the lease again. Today, I have to say goodbye to Beijing, goodbye to my little family. At this moment, I have no words to express my feelings. I am a single mother. I came to Beijing half a year ago, thinking I would stay here with my family. But more issues have to be considered. If I have to leave eventually, then I will leave now. I hope that wherever I am, I will live up to my parents' expectations, and I will definitely do my best. Thank you all for the experiences.
北京本地年轻人会离开北京吗？
Will young Beijing natives leave Beijing? If it were a decade or two ago, I would say no. After all, this is home, and there are plenty of job opportunities and room for development. Who would want to leave their hometown? But in recent years, more and more young Beijingers around me have chosen to leave Beijing and develop in other cities. I've begun to understand that Beijingers don't necessarily have to stay in their hometown. Life is about looking forward. Wherever there's a comfortable environment and better development opportunities, that's home. That's all for today. If you enjoy our content, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with a friend. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time.